right, welcome everybody to the Bar Talk Podcast, featuring Chabot and Karlstello, a.k.a. Jordan Chabot of Speedwell Tavern, and we got Karl Heine of the New World Tavern.
Hello again, everybody.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Thanks to Andy and Fish for having us from Inebriart. Today we got a few guests, quite a few. We got a full packed room today. We're looking at John Payton of Lord Hobo Brewing.
Hello.
We got
How
Kenny.
are you?
Very nice.
They don't talk back to you. You can't really ask questions.
We got Kenny Semcken of the soon-to-be-open Second Wind Brewery.
Hello.
All right. We got Lauren Smith and Angela Allstedt. Close enough.
It's fine.
Of Bay State Brew Tours. And we are recording in the basement of the craft beer cellar, sort of the central hub, the circulatory system of the Plymouth beer world. And, since we have so many experienced beer minds in the basement today, we thought it'd be a good idea to kind of just sort of talk about beer styles and throw them around the room and see what sticks and see what everybody's opinion of what a beer style would be, because at the end of the day, it's all subjective. And we know that. And, there's an argument. There's arguments, there's debates, there's preferences, and there's popularity with different beer styles, and everyone's got their opinion, everyone's got their flavor. But it's kind of cool when you're in a room with people that have been in the industry from so many different angles for so long, maybe to look at it from different sort of perspectives. And what's your flavor? Why does this certain style sell well? Why does this certain style sort of gravitate to you? And maybe get everybody's opinion on that. I think it's a really cool concept, and I don't know, Karl, you helped me a lot with this, and you came in with this category. So what were you hoping to get out of this?
Well, I think what I'd like to get out of this is to talk about what we think the public wants to know. So we in this room all know about beer styles, and we could talk about it in a beer geek fashion that regular drinkers just don't understand. So what I'd like to do is bring this from a regular drinker's understanding of it and kind of explain different things. So the first thing I would bring up, the first topic, and it's just, I would say pretty new in the last year or two, is IPAs. Everybody loves IPAs. The newest thing is now West Coast versus East Coast. So I'll ask you, Johnny.
Yeah.
Bearded Johnny.
Bearded Johnny.
What is the difference?
Red Johnny.
What is the difference between a West Coast and an East Coast IPA?
At Lord Hobo, we do a West Coast style, and most of our other beers are really East Coast. And more specifically, I think we're at a point now where New England IPA is the predominant, overarching style that people are putting on things. And the difference is West Coast tends to be more bitter in the finish with grapefruit and pine resin hop character, whereas New England
give us an example of one of those beers. If I was out to buy one, what would be an example?
Something you see everywhere.
I would say either buy Green Flash West Coast IPA or Stone IPA. I personally think that Lagunitas IPA is a little diluted at this point. I don't think it actually represents that style. To me, West Coast IPA is aggressive. It's palate obliterating, and it typically resides around 7%. And I think both Stone IPA and West Coast IPA are both at 7%.
These are pretty good examples. Stone IPA is one of those ones that gets sort of lost in the noise because it's been around forever, and it's just their IPA. They have so many IPAs now, as a lot of breweries do, because it's the most popular, the fastest growing style. That's a really good point. I think that's sort of the OG of the West Coast IPA world, along with the Green Flash. It sort of gets lost in the noise. So
absolutely.
And now, are you saying there's a difference between East Coast IPAs and New England style IPAs?
No, I think the New England style IPA has just taken over that moniker.
In what is
East Coast IPA
describe
was Harpoon. East Coast IPA was English style. It was malty. It was bitter, but not in a very specific way. And now it's New England with the New England IPA name. It is tropical. It is lightly bready, cereal-like. and the bitterness doesn't linger long at all, if any. I mean, if you get a little bit of bitterness, I mean, you should be like happy, honestly, because like that'll be a little bit of a difference in the style from what we've seen from Trillium and Treehouse and I mean Lawson's,
Right.
And even us. I mean, I think we have a slight bitterness, but I drink the beer so often that like I can tell a lot better than your average person could.
You're also a certified Cicerone, aren't you?
I am.
For those of you listening that don't know what a Cicerone is, so like, we're getting to you, Kenny. Relax. But for those of you guys listening that don't know what a Cicerone is, basically there's like a few levels of Cicerone, and I'm not even gonna act like I'm an expert on what that is. I am generally aware, but I sort of checked out when I became a restaurant owner where I couldn't focus all my chips on beer specifically. But basically there are a few levels, and Johnny and Kenny as well are, and you as well. Yeah, and Angela is as well.
Certified?
So... yeah,
CBS.
I'm feeling sorry. Certified, basically beer experts.
They let women do
I mean,
it,
that's really. Let's not walk around it. Certified beer experts. So you have to pass this incredibly difficult test, and I've seen people study for it. I've helped people study for it. I've never taken the test myself because I'm not going to walk into a situation where I'm going to fail. So, but hearing that perspective is pretty cool because. Yes, when I hear East Coast IPA, I think malt forward.
I thought maybe
I think
test. I'm sorry.
it's basically what like American Pale Ale is now, and like, but now everyone's like East Coast IPA. The new guys to the game are like New England IPA.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that muddy, that opaque, that yellow, the stuff I got in front of me right now. Thanks, Angela. It's delicious. It took a little while for New England to come around. It's sort of where trends started on the West Coast and moved its way over here in fashion and music. You saw it in beer too, but now you see in New England sort of being the innovator on that field.
I mean, I think that like New England IPA it should encompass like I don't think the hazy thing should just be the defining quality. I mean, if you're making a tropical fruit forward IPA, but you're keeping it bright and with a little bit of bitterness in the finish, that's a New England IPA as well.
Right.
I mean, you should never. I don't know. I don't think it should be limiting it as much as it is. Like, when you go onto some of these like beer forums or trading pages, people like are they focus on like a few specific breweries, and it's typically the ones that are putting out the hazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you're looking at like whale chasers and people who are they're just in it for waiting in the line and not necessarily because they like the style, but because they're chasing some hype.
Of course.
And like we need to get away from this is the only way to present the style and into as long as it has these qualities but not necessarily all of them,
of course,
is a better way of producing opinions and popularity. Like
I think those are all really, really good points. And coming from a perspective of a brewery that I think I would say specializes more of the West Coast IPA and starting to dabble maybe more, not to back it into any sort of corner. It's its own thing. It's and maybe maybe the Hobo Life and the Glorious is starting to come around where it's its own style. Right?
I mean, I think we make New England beers.
Right.
I mean, we make like unfiltered. They're not like super hazy like the way that some of these other ones are, but there is some haze to them.
Right.
But we also make like bright beer. I mean, Steal This Can is bright. Even Boom Sauce can be pretty bright at times,
right.
Especially early, like maybe like that 2-week, 4-week period where the beer is really the best. 1 Day Old beer has nothing on 14 to 30 day old beer, like it's better. And everyone wants to chase freshness, but they don't realize that like some of the best beers they're drinking are all like peaking around 30 days.
Right. That's kind of a cool thing, though. At the end of the day, to take a positive out of the deal is the chase of freshness. You know, like before, and it's sort of everything's sort of getting back to local, where people just bought whatever was in their local store because it was the best beer they could get. 10 years ago, you bought whatever you could. Now it's the options are out there, and you got beer, world-class beer in your backyard. And I think that's pretty rad. And Lord Hobo's definitely doing that, right?
I mean, we think we are, and there's some lists that are coming out that are telling us that we are.
Right.
We're in 14 states right now. That speaks to our growth and our quality. If we weren't doing really good beer and we weren't growing very fast, we wouldn't be in 14 states.
Didn't Cigar City tap a log of you guys, like the first log in Florida, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Right? Something like that, yeah.
Nothing going on in Florida, and
it might have been the first log. I don't know, first half maybe, or I don't know. I think it was. We were the only out of state brewery on their taps that day, and that was at Hunapoo's Day, which is their huge imperial stout release every year.
$200 a head.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, Florida was a big market for us. Florida was really, it still is, like, it's got a ceiling that kind of just keeps going. We're not closing in on that ceiling anytime soon.
Hell
in
yeah.
Fenway.
Right, so, let's get back to styles. I just don't want to go off the track too much.
Yeah, no.
So, Kenny, who's opening up the Second Wind Brewery here in Plymouth, in when?
We're shooting for that Thanksgiving parade. That's our target.
We're going to ask you questions on this. What is your opinion, especially for someone who's opening up a brewery, on ABV? On any beers. Now, explain what ABV means.
Sure.
And then tell us what you think is going on in the industry with higher and lower ABV beers.
You picked an interesting point, because Second Wind's looking at a pretty interesting market in Plymouth. So we've got a lot of tourists that are coming through, want to try something local. We've got something of beer culture that's inherent to this area, where we've got a lot of beer geeks who we got to keeps us on our toes to keep putting out some interesting beers. And then we've got beer tourists, that now that we've got 4 breweries, 2 distilleries, hopefully a cidery and some wineries, that we're going to be driving a lot of people here who are also going to be knowledgeable about beer. So I'll come back to your point about ABV. My point was around understanding how within the mix of that demographic, you've got people who are macro beer drinkers who are just in town to try something light. And you've got people who just want to crush 8.5% hazy beers. So ABV, alcohol by volume, the function of the alcohol content in the beer as it relates to the sugars fermented by the yeast, if we want to get really into the details. So I'm talking about like high gravity beers. From a consumer perspective, there's always been a market for big, powerful stouts, barrel aged things with fortified by other bourbon, rye, things like that. We see like Barrel House Z does really, really well with barrel age program, puts out some really, really big beers. And then, the IPAs, I think, kind of cruise in by style guidelines, we're talking 5.5 to 7.5%, but you see a lot that are right on that 7.5 to 8.5% seems to be the sweet spot in I think a lot of the popular IPAs you see these days as market leader. So where we're at, and then you look on the flip side of that. So you've also got beers that are cruising in that 4.5, 5.5% session beers. Hobo Life's favorite of mine. We're making a session New England IPA from a good flavor and easy drinking. I'd like to session those beers. I get a lot of the beers we've got out in front of us. We've got this selection of these New York and other area. My nephew's lives on Long Island. He's 23 years old. Every time he comes up with cases of Other Half, Finback, all these breweries that he's waited in line for these beers for.
It's like another Angela.
and a lot of those beers, like he'll come up with 16 of them, and that'll take me like 2 weeks to drink them because I sit down at the end of the day and I'm beat from job 1, job 2, kids in bed. Now I've one of these beers and tackling an 8.5% hazy beer.
Right.
Like that's going to be my elixir to put me to sleep. But
And
like
drinking those beers is work in itself. Like there's so much hops in these beers that it becomes a chore to actually drink them.
a big chewy, chunky melange of flavors and ingredients. But so my point is that I feel as though there's probably a move towards. We're hoping towards more traditional and or more sessionable styles that for us in town here, like if we just put up all 9% beers and we've got people coming through our tap room who are just visiting because they're local and don't, the question we got the most when we were working at an indie firm was, what's your lightest beer? What's the closest thing you have to Blue Moon? Right. You got a lot of people come in who want those crushable beers. And that's kind of the inside joke behind our Howland at the Moon wit. Howland's the street we're on.
Took it out of my mouth.
Moon, Howland at Blue Moon. That's our thing. It's like we wanted to make a craft, crushable Blue Moon alternative for people who are going to be coming into town. And we just poured it at Bacon and Beer Jamboree. Got a huge reception to it.
Good.
Which is really, really kind of validating what we're thinking. Because we know that this area's got, like I said, it's a melting pot of different beer knowledge and beer desires. So we want to make some crushable beers. We got a waterfront full of restaurants that.
Now, when you say crushable beers, tell the listeners what that
That's
means.
a word I like.
You've said it multiple times.
Have I? Oh man.
Yep. And
So-
to me, crushable means something that you could have more than one of.
Yeah, and
So if I'm going to the store and I'm going to get a 6-pack of 5% beer, but I'm only going to get one 8% beer. So your sales, I'm really drinking 6 beers to 1.
yeah,
So I guess what I wanted to get on track was to say, for those people that sell the 8, 9, 10, 12% beers, and they're out there and they're great, but as a bar owner, I find people only drinking one and then they're going back to their old favorites or something that is more crushable, as you say. And I think that's where the session IPAs a few years back came up. It used to be, the bigger, the bolder, the higher alcohol IPA you could get was supposed to be the best IPA you get, and then all of a sudden you came out with a bunch of session IPAs, and everybody went to the session IPAs because, as Johnny was saying, it's sometimes it is a chore to drink these things. It's a lot.
I've sat down and drank certain beers, and like I've needed a water in between sips because there's just so much happening on your palate that it's like, I how could I take another sip when I still can't like get through the first. And there's a lot of that, and in terms of style, and like I don't know, like I feel like the word crushable over the past 3 years, the first can I ever saw it on was Two Roads, Little Heaven, and it was certainly crushable. That was a little more malty. It wasn't super It wasn't like a really heavy Pilsner malt. It had a little more like nuttiness to it, and it was. But I feel like crushable has been like assimilated with session IPA over the past few years.
I remember the first session IPA I had. It was Wachusett.
Yeah, Wachusett.
And they called it light IPA.
Yeah.
And it was like, isn't that kind of an oxymoron? Like, is this like hot flavored soda water? But around here, I feel like opened up the door to that sort of. That's my favorite style. I like IPAs. IPA is my favorite style. Let's not split hairs, but I love it when on a hot summer day I can crush a few Hobo Ice. And I know for the the Hophead Fest from a few months ago, you guys brought your session IPA, and I was blown away. And
that was killer.
Dude, second win. Like,
thank you.
I mean, it was. I was like, and my sort of assumptions coming into it, a brewery that's not open yet, and it's not quite there and a few months out, and you show up to a festival, and I'm like expecting good things from the beer, but I'm like, oh, I'm probably going to need to tweak some things. And I had a sip of that IPA, man. And I was luckily to be the table serving the food on the side of you guys, because I had quite a few.
Well, let's jump out of the IPAs. And a question I get a lot of at the bar is, and I'm gonna keep it on Kenny for this one, is porters versus stouts. What's the difference? Are they the same? How do you categorize them? How does one not be the other? What's going on with porters and stouts?
All right. So, I mean, for me, of the number of differences, the key one is usually the bitterness. Around stouts are more, given the potentially greater ABV, they're also bittered with more hops. American stouts typically, even that's generally a style differentiator between English and American styles, is the amount of bitterness and hops added. I mean, there's different ways to break down the two styles. I think the formal name is a stout porter, so it is kind of like, they are very analogous and very difficult in times. I think a lot of times people will also have a vision of what a stout is based on seeing Guinness poured on nitro. So if you ever drank a dry Irish stout that wasn't on nitro, you'd think, oh, this is thin, this is really dry, this is not what I had in mind. This is much weaker. I think a lot of times stouts also get that perception of having. People think Guinness is big and heavy and full of calories, but stouts run around 4.5-5%, and the reality is they're in lower alcohol than any of the beers we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Guinness is like 90 calories, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, it's a diet beer.
It's everyone talks about how big it is, but really, like, it's a really low calorie beer.
I always explain to people, I'm like, sugar equals alcohol, right? And when the malt gets roasted, it gets darker, and basically what you're doing is cooking the sugar out of it. So, like, the darker the beer, I guess essentially doesn't mean the lighter the calorie, the lighter the alcohol. Obviously, there's imperial stouts out there, barrel-aged stouts, stuff like that. But think about that when you have a Guinness or any kind of dry stout, stuff like that. It is sort of splitting hairs, though. I know coming up in the beer game,
yeah,
there was something about basically where it was brewed, and like, I always think of porters more molassesy, I guess. I don't know, but it's not that way anymore.
I've always thought stouts are just, they're roastier, whereas porters are nuttier and toastier. You get a more of a coffee roast on a stout,
right? Whereas
you get more of a baked bread and like light chocolate note on a porter,
right?
Yeah, definitely like more bitterness on stouts, especially American stouts, and then porters, like, I think a little sweeter, typically.
Yeah,
because you get that chocolate note really, really nicely, whereas you get more coffee on the stout, and that's just the difference of how much you're roasting each grain, and the flavors that you're getting out of that. Yeah.
So another beer style, just jumping into it, is, and I'm going off Karl's notes here, it's a style I have a hard time actually even ordering anymore, because talk about blurred lines between porter and stout, pale ale and IPA. I mean, at least in America, it's just, you really can't find a pale ale. The days of Sierra Nevada pale ale.
Well, now they're all coming back to pale ales, but they're calling it a hoppy pale ale.
Right.
Which, if you're not an IPA lover, why would you get a hoppy pale ale? So it's almost taking its category and merging it with an IPA. So just call it an IPA.
I do it on my beer menu at Speedwell, man. I have a struggle. I try to categorize my beer menu, and I have a struggle keeping that pale ale category going. Like bring in the main mo, I bring in the Lord Hobo Glorious, which yeah, I crush a lot of. Sponsored this podcast, I think, the first 4 episodes at least. But I'm a big fan, but there is a blurred line there, because if you were to give me a Lord Hobo Glorious 4 years ago, I'd be like, "This is a fucking IPA, dude." Like, this is IPA.
I think we toe the line.
Yeah,
We toe the line
I think everyone is,
on a
right?
pale ale. Like,
Well,
There's a lot of
again for our listeners. What is that line?
Right.
Not we told the line.
I-
What is the
right.
line between a pale ale and an IPA? We're talking about styles only, not particular beers.
I think that if we were a true pale ale, true American pale ale, the type that we've seen over the past 20 years, it would have a little more malt to it, and it would have it would probably, I would say it would probably have the same bitterness, but it would have a little more malt to it, a little more nuttiness, and
Like an East Coast
toasted
IPA,
bread.
maybe?
there's a lot of overlap between
Right?
the two styles because you've got
That's what I'm saying.
like pale ales are
Evolution,
like
right?
mid 4s to 6 ABV, 5.5 to 7.5 on I. So then you get IPAs are a little. The SRM can run a little darker.
Yeah.
The bitterness is like 40 to 60, say, on a pale ale versus
Right.
40 to 70 on a. So yeah, there is because we just had our juggernaut. We called it an extra pale ale because we hit the pale ale category except the ABV was too high. So it's kind of another one of these made up styles where
Right.
Yeah.
people came up and said, "Let me try the IPA." I mean, looking at most of the, it was 62 IBUs, falls in both categories.
That's kind of funny. Like
SRM
extra
wise, it was right dead smack
Right.
in like probably
Well, let's
6-7 hours.
I think that's a good segue into my next question was IBUs, international bitterness units. Years ago, it meant a lot. Today, I don't think it means anything.
No one gives a shit.
I do not think it means anything at all, and I get into arguments with people pretty often because I am willing to say
quarterback
to
rating a
people
beer, dude.
that their care for IBU doesn't matter in the slightest.
QBR.
It
Used to be IBUs. Used to be how much hops was put into the beer,
Yeah.
and that's how they measured it. But there was only 2-3 grains of hops back then. Types of hops. Now there's 8 million.
Yeah.
So
1, 2, or 3.
Even
Well,
though
I'll let you have it,
there was
Carl.
like 7.
All right, go ahead.
But that was the only ones that they used.
Oh, we're talking about way
they
back
didn't
when
have-
you
yeah.
were around.
Yeah.
It was it was when the number of people equaled the number of hops.
Yeah,
on
okay,
the
all right. We're going to call it. Yes.
That's all.
Prehistoric.
So-
all right.
But if you look at like the style,
So if you look at how much IBUs or how many IBUs are in a beer, it does not necessarily mean that it's bitter.
No.
So
not at
I
all.
think that's the next thing that these judging people are going to do, and the what's that big one? The American
Great.
they're going to do away with because it really does not mean anything.
It's
well,
subjective.
bitterness is
it's not
important.
subjective.
I
It's-
want to let Johnny speak too, but because to your point, yeah, like a big imperial stout has a ton of bitterness because you've got a big malt backbone that you need to counteract all that sweetness.
If we're talking bitterness, I'd
You
call
don't
it
have
100
cloying-
IBUs
a
easily.
cloyingly sweet stout. But when you look at some of the only point I wanted to add in, and I'll turn it over to John, is that like when you see I don't name breweries, but like there's some that will go with the 111, 140. By the point your palate can no longer detect that amount of bitterness.
Correct.
Like that's just appealing to. I think it was the old West Coast. I want to like bite into the grapefruit rind type, enjoy by type bitterness.
Right.
Whereas now New England IPA,
Wrecker.
you get into the
point.
whole late edition, dry hop, whirlpool, where the calculation of IBUs is based on what you put in the boil. So when you start throwing in bags, dumping in bags of hops at the end, you're getting all that flavor and aroma,
And then we're paying for it, and there's no difference.
but none of that bitterness. So I think it's a total. To your point around how much what you're using in the quantity of hops, it's what you're using in the boil, which to a consumer means Absolutely not.
also
The consumer thinks it means
a lot.
they're going to get more.
And if
bitterness
that,
out.
and as a brewery opening up, as a guy working for a brewery, like if you can use something like that to your advantage, like I mean, what the fuck, like prey on it.
Oh,
but
hell no, hell no. I am like people ask me all the time what our IBUs we have. I mean, we've sent them off to be analyzed like once, and I believe they all came in between 65 and 80 IBUs. All of our beers.
right.
So what does that say? That says that none of this matters. That's what that says
Because they're all completely different beers.
they're all completely different beers, and and what people are forgetting or don't know, depending on your level of knowledge with brewing, is there's alpha acid units, and that determines how it's dissolved into the beer, or how much bitterness is dissolved into the beer.
Right.
You know, if you have a really high alpha acid unit and it's something like Galaxy, it's not really going to do much bittering. It's all flavor and aroma. I mean, we double dose Glorious, and it just isn't bitter.
Right.
Like, but it matters when you do it. Like you were saying, like whirlpool, dry hop, boil, you know, secondary fermentation. Like, it matters, and the boil is the one that matters the most about bittering, and no one's doing it anymore.
No,
You need
everyone's going right to dry
heat,
hop, right?
the isomerization of the alpha acids. You need the heat for it. So if you're adding in all your hops in dry hop, like when you see these, like a couple of these breweries we're talking about have, and I'm pointing at the cans on the table here, meaning like some of the new, there's 0 IBU beers are because, they're adding it all so late. But in order to get that flavor and aroma out, you're so underutilizing the hops that you have to use like 4 or 5 times as many, which is what's driving the cost up on these.
Would you say it's the cold brew coffee of the beer world? That's essentially that's the same thing.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Well,
Because then you have to drink it fresh, and then you've got
And you're also going to pay twice as much for it,
you've got
right?
scarcity of hops. You've
Right,
got
of
now
course.
short shelf life and demand. So you've got all these things charging a $7.16.
Yeah, and that time that goes into it.
I paid $25 a 4-pack at Tired Hands for a triple dry hopped.
Yeah.
$25 a 4-pack.
Because the amount of hops and the time is going into that.
and they
triple
saw it
dry
driving
hop.
up.
The process takes a while. And they
I
saw it
bought one
driving
for
up.
$13.99. No, but you know that's another
tell you what, I'll drink
Angela.
it.
That's another good thing because I wanted to ask you. We've talked a little bit about styles. I know we got in a little more into it than I wanted to. Again, a lot of these people that are listening to us have no idea what you guys are talking about.
No clue.
So we gotta keep it to.
Including this
Yeah.
guy. No,
But the question I have
no idea about it.
is, you're selling beer
Yes.
to the public. What is an easy sell? What's a tough sell? You know, what is your experience from the public coming in and dealing with them with every day? What are they looking for, and what do they have no clue about?
Well, for specifically Craft Beer Cellar Plymouth, we sell mostly New England IPAs. I would say that is a huge majority of our market. However, this year we saw a change in trends where people were drinking stouts and porters all year long. Whereas, like, you know, usually when it starts to warm up, we see that trend slow down. But this year, especially with, like, Barrel House Z Adeline, people are buying that all year long. The Maui Coconut Porter, the Base Camp S'mores. But for us, I would say the best selling for us is the New England IPA, and on the less popular end of things is anything international, and we've definitely seen a dip in our West Coast.
Yeah, I would say, right? I mean, well, going back to where we started, sort of, with the West Coast, if freshness is really, like, sort of the key now, right? I mean, and New England's producing these IPAs that are sought out. My good friend just came back from his honeymoon over in Europe, and people were freaking out over getting, everyone knows about Eddie Topper, but, like, it wasn't just Eddie Topper. It was Mass Landing, it was Finback, it was Single Cut, it was Lord Hobo. Like, people freaking out over in Europe if someone going over there to visit brought him a can from one of these, like, New England or New York State breweries, and it's kind of...
And what is the reason for that? We've talked about that in our past podcasts.
Hype.
People want what they can't get.
Hype. It's hype. Now, don't get me wrong. The beer, I'm a victim of it because I'm telling you, these are the beers I prefer. This is what I want.
Right, but are people coming in buying, like you said, they're buying New England style. Yeah. But are they really asking for that, or they just happen to be buying the brands that you have that happen to be New England style?
So you gave it to them in a black cup, like what if you told them it was New England style and it wasn't?
Right, like are people asking, hey, what do you have for New England style? Right. Or are they saying, what is a local beer? How does that work with the public coming in?
So I get at least a minimum on a good day asked for Heady Topper once. On a good day. And every single time I just have to...
But that's the hype. We're talking about this what are they coming in to ask for? Like, are they asking for IPAs?
They want the newest...
the styles. I'm trying to keep on the styles.
They want, what do you have that's new? What do you have that's local? What do you have that's fresh?
Does it have to be an IPA or...
It could be anything?
I would say it's like an 80% IPA, 20%...
Right, that's what I would have guessed, too.
Yeah.
Right. So,
So the other question I was going to ask was, Johnny, you're coming from the other end, and I don't want to hear from the Lord Hobo side of you. I want to hear from, you worked for a distributor that sold beer. Tell me, what's an easy sell, and what did you really have to work to sell at for a style of beer?
I mean, it depends on the market you're in. IPAs are definitely an easy sell all around. I think that pilsners are still an easy sell. People know what a pilsner is. They can sell that. Stouts are an easy sell. Anything that has any relation from 5 years ago and on is an easy sell. You know, anything that's super hoppy, anything that's sour, anything that is too barrel aged, too high in ABV, too high in price point, those are things that are really hard to sell.
I was like, what's a hard thing to sell? But,
Price
Brown ale,
points.
I think.
Price points really hard. I mean, I deal with Karl Heine as one of my customers. Price points.
Good luck selling anything to this guy. What do you got for me?
Keep trying. Throw a sweatshirt every once in a while, see what you get.
So Kenny, hearing all that, right, and as a guy that is at seeing checkered flags, getting ready to open, walking to this super congested market, and it is congested. You got the support from your local people, but you got to go into this thinking you got to stop thinking outside your region too. What are you guys going to do, sort of, to separate yourself? Hearing that the style trends and knowing, I know and I know Hans knows, Jay knows, like IPA is sort of the trend and the style, but you're also getting response on your session wit and stuff like that. I mean, how do you approach that? What do you take?
Yeah, so I guess to before you start, I guess the question that we had talked about before is we're going to carry your beer from Second Wind because we know you.
Yeah.
That's it. If we didn't know you, what is your sales plan for going into an account that has no idea about your brewery? How are you going to get shelf space? How are you going to get a keg on there? How does that all work? How do you get a placement?
It's a great question. I mean, I won't pretend to have all the answers because I've never done it other than around here. So, having worked at Indie Firm and the couple of years of the three of us working there and trying to build that brand, that when we were working there, we were trying to help get it into some new places. It all is relying on relationship, and you're hit it on the head. Second Wind is our plan is take care of Plymouth first. I think with our current capacity and size, we could spend a lot of time just with, our business plan lists. I think it was over 25 key and or tier 1 accounts within like a mile of the brewery, within like 2 miles of the brewery. So
nice place to start.
We've got a lot and some good relationships with there. How do I go approach somewhere beyond that, or someone comes and opens a new place right in our backyard? So obviously we've got new restaurants opening up, people who don't know us. I think the key for me has always been about the quality of our beer and the relationships we have. So I would like to obviously utilize the relations I have with people in terms of using our network and bringing them our beer and having them try it if they haven't tried it, let them know where to get it, bringing them samples, those typical kinds of things. But I think our goal is, once we've got a strong foothold in our own town, like my plan, I think, let me take this question a different way, is if I need to sell beer tomorrow, like, I'm not going to be like, oh, someone from Attleboro just called me, or Marshfield, just like, I'm not going to sell beer where it's out of this region. We want to grow smartly, if that's a word.
I know what you mean, though.
Growing from the epicenter outward, and not just be like, oh, we need to sell beer on the South Shore because someone called us for it. Like, there's an operational cost to driving one keg up to enter your North Shore town here that I can't think of.
Right.
But around that point, it's like we want to grow that people on the out, that we've taken care of our home base. It's growing on the outskirts that, Kingston, Duxbury, Wareham, now we've kind of grown out. We're out in Middleborough, Lakeville, those kinds of things that with our size and scale, like that's the kind of growth we're looking for. We're not going to be in 5 states like Mayflower, 15 states like Lord Hobo, without a couple $1 million injection. And to us, it's about, we want to be successful brewers. We want to have a brand that's, we want to have a peer relationship with the night shifts and trilliums of this area. We think we can make beer on that quality, and we think we're starting off, similar,
Right, but I guess the
scale.
question is, how do you get your foot in the door of a place you've never been to? Because at some point, you can be in, a lot of these bars in Plymouth, it's your growth is not going to grow.
Well, I think what he said.
But I guess what I'm looking for is, what's your pitch?
Yeah.
How do you go in and sell?
I think he's using us at his pitch, and that's what he's sort of saying is like the proof is in the pudding. I'm going to start with the people I've already.
Secrets.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
No,
Don't tell the secrets.
I can elaborate because I know
Okay.
I'm being a little bit long-winded about Second Wind. Because the point for me that I was trying to drive home with this was our mission is around elevating this area. We want to drive people to Plymouth. We want to have such a great scene here that we don't need to expand to a point where, we have to sell, we have to be on the shelves, an hour away from here in order to keep up with our overhead and fixed costs. So my pitch to a place now, we're at a point now where we've saturated this area and we're being thoughtful about not having the same beer in every bar across the street and mixing that up. Yeah, my approach is on our personalities. We would bring our beer to bring our beer to the I guess I meant to say
Now I know why Hans didn't show up.
I said personality, but I meant personal relationships in terms of going into those places and talking to the people, understanding. Like most of the places that even in Plymouth I don't know. I've already gone there to eat. I go to see what they're serving. I talk to them about what they need, what they're looking for, what their customers like. I get a sense for what people are buying. So I want to be able to go in there with some market knowledge I've gained myself to say, I see you've got a tap line here like this, or you've got something else that we can, here's something else we can offer next time you take that one off. I think there's I'm not a salesperson. I work on the opposite side of that in my day job, but I think in understanding like how to position our beer, you can only ride local so far. You got to have a great brand. Mm-hmm. You got to be consistent. You've got to be there. I'm not going to drop off my beer and never step foot in your restaurant again. So yeah, we have a plan that
Damn it! I was hoping that was what we would take.
All right,
I guess I'm still getting catty.
We're going to be present in the market, and that's how we're looking to make those relationships. So hopefully people will ask for our beer, and we'll have a good following and tribe through created through our social media and through bringing people through. But first point I made was I don't have the answers. I'm not an experienced salesperson. When we're at a point where we need that help, I'm not afraid to admit I don't have that skill set.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's probably the smartest thing you could do at this point.
Right,
and
not
realize that you don't.
Yes.
Because a lot of these people that start up a brewery think that they know everything about it because they drink a lot.
I think from a buyer's standpoint, like Karl's saying, as a bar that wants to carry the best and the freshest, I also buy based on a relationship, and I think that was the best answer. Like, you can only do what you can do. Show face, show up to the bar, ask questions, do your homework. I was buying from Johnny before he was with Lord Hobo, and now he's with Hobo, and I buy Lord Hobo because
Johnny,
I like the beer, but I love Johnny too.
Because you walk into a ton of accounts when you were working for the distributors, and you would go into these accounts not knowing anybody. How do you make your sell?
So, I mean, first off, a compliment. You guys love brewing beer. You're going to be able to sell beer in at least any place that you walk into that you're familiar with and they appreciate you. You're going to be able to sell it. Then, this flip side, to give you some advice, like, when you get to that point where you have to, like, go kind of overstretch your abilities and
your comfort zone.
In your comfort zone. For me, when I was with the distributor, when I was with Colonial, I was fresh. They just threw me to the wolves. That was it. It was like, go out there and get it.
You did a good job, though, man. I gave you a lot of props.
He was all right.
Yeah, you know,
I actually showed up for our meetings. Carl would pretend he wasn't there and hide in the back room.
No. He was there. We were there in like.
I used to come out when he starts.
Listen, you don't have to be nice to
Once
him.
the tears came out, I'm like, okay, I'll take a keg.
Easy.
Yeah. So, it's building relationships. At the end of the day, sales 101 is build your relationship. And it's not Alec Baldwin in a movie saying ABC. It's go in, make that relationship. If that relationship takes you 8 weeks, if it takes you 10 weeks, so be it. Like, that's just how it is.
Right.
You put in the time. I mean, if you're, I've worked on an account in Seaport for 8 weeks right now. I haven't gotten a sale from them.
I know a certain account in town you worked on for a while, and it was no fault of yours, but you walked into a situation where basically this account said they weren't going to carry your beer, and you built the bridge there, man. Like, how'd you do that? Like, I don't know if you know a specific one I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it on here, but...
Is it the New World Tavern? Because I kicked him out like 3 times.
I don't know. Is it? I don't know.
No, it's not. But there's a bar in town that carried a beer, and I thought for sure, there was just for whatever reason, a bunch of people that have been in the game for a while, and you built a bridge there.
It's constant inundation with your face and a beer.
Right.
I literally dropped off beers every single time I went, and I would joke about the fact that he didn't want to buy.
Yeah.
And so, it was all right. I'm okay with that. Like, I'm used to that.
But you got it done.
Yeah.
And that's why it's great to hear from your perspective because, these guys are coming in super fresh and super enthusiastic, and the juice is good. But there's gonna be when you get out of town.
It's all about smiling through the pain and just like.
And I've seen you in pain, man. I know you did it.
And it's about like being like, look, we make good beer. We make good beer, but you're just being like.
Wait, nice pair of brakes, bro.
You can say it.
It's the word. You're stubborn.
Nice
You're
brakes,
being
bro.
stubborn.
Sure, that's what you were going for. Yeah, that starts with an A.
You don't appreciate it anyway. It's like I've won accounts. Brand new account in South Boston. Just opened up 4 lines. All opened up with the beers that the distributor that she worked for was selling. Went in there, spoke with the chef, before open. He was like, gave us the rundown, gave us a tour, came back. He saw us, came over and talked to us. Just me. It was just me that night. He came over and talked to me. We then he sent some food out. I bought cocktails. Just kind of sat and was there, and then at the end of the night, talked to the managers, went out to my car, got samples, gave samples to the full staff, and then, the next time around, I came in with the rep, we bought some cocktails, didn't even buy beers, because, our beer's not on, so why and
that's a move, though. I like that.
And then she was like, all right, you came in here.
Yeah.
You spent the time. You spent you put in the work.
Correct.
We'll give you a line. They're our top 20 account today.
Get the hell out of here.
So
nicely done.
Like that. When you put in the work and you inundate people with yourself, your personality, your product, your time, your energy, like all that stuff. Persistence, like all of it makes a difference. Because at the end of the day, you're a person, we're all people, and we need to be treated.
We're all shaking our hands right now.
They're all not sure if they're human beings, but it's okay.
All right, so the last point I wanted to bring up, one of the last anyway, was, and we all go through it, and Angela, you brought it up with Hetty Topper.
Hype.
Hype. Fact versus fiction.
Church of Hype.
Hype. So, Heady Topper's supposedly, if you ask any drinker out there,
He's a little old.
that's the best beer in the world. Okay? So, the first time I had a Heady Topper, I opened it and there was no confetti came out. There was no dancing girls. I mean, and it was a very good beer.
I gave you an old one.
But I was all your beers over here, please are old.
Wow. Retraction.
If I never had that beer before, I would have said this beer is really, really good. But because it was Heady Topper and I heard all the hype on it, it was just okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm looking from a sales point of view from your end and your end, Angela. Is how do you deal with that?
I love it. We're just.
I mean, look, we're making beers that we're saying no to the line, to the hype. We're saying no to all that stuff. We're saying you should be able to get that beer whenever you want. I mean, you know, the way I look at it is that when people come at me, I mean, I have accounts that have you know, they don't want to do business with a company because they can't get a certain beer. Because there's all this hype around it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, but do you understand that you have a ton of other great beers that you don't need? But, you know, those are the people that don't want to, like, pay for the assistance to sell the beer. They're gonna run their liquor store exactly as is.
Right.
They're not gonna put in the extra effort and say
There's no sales effort. It's just
Yeah.
to come in, grab what you want, and leave.
But
exactly.
we got someone here that puts in a lot of sales.
No,
effort.
we're
I mean,
talking from these other places that.
No, I know, but I want to hear
what.
what. How do you deal with it when you know, like?
So there is. I'm not gonna say who it is, but there's a certain. I don't know why I blocked. Anyway, there's a certain,
No one can
I'll get it on the
see you.
replay.
And you know, I'm pretty sure the microphone picked that up. But anyway.
oh no. So there's a certain IPA that has become available to the region recently, and so when I tried it for the first time, like you said with Heady Topper, you were expecting like unicorn kisses and confetti and like an orgasm.
There's a
but-
beer called Unicorn.
Yeah,
Kisses,
that's
pretty good.
hold on. That's Polar Beverages. We're not
Oh,
stealing your name.
Oh, that's right. It's Paul.
we had that on our road trip. But anyway, so people will come in and they'll say, "Oh, do you have this beer?" Which we get in every now and then. And no, I don't. Okay, well then I'm good. Never mind. It's like I can literally show you 25 beers in this store that are better than that specific beer. I think it's all hype all the time. Actually, Wachusett came out with what I think is their best beer ever. It's
Never
crazy
had it.
cheap. Yeah. You bought a six
But
pack
again,
today.
But I was going to make the point to say that if you blind taste tested people and you put a $2 can of Wally in front of somebody and then all those other beers,
The Wally
I mean,
would win.
yeah.
maybe it doesn't win, but it's indifferentiable from.
Right.
There's so much to those different beers, and I love the model of some of the more successful beers in our region that it's a new variant, different hop, dry hop, single hop, but from one to the other, you really can't tell a difference. But because they're a new SKU,
So
I got to get in line. And
how
get
does
it.
Heady Topper and these other beers? How do they get that hype? How does that build so much?
Exclusive.
Well, there's
Yeah.
that. There's exclusive.
Exclusivity.
I really messed it up for you.
I got you guys.
Only
The
one
Florida
team.
guy will get you.
Only one team.
With the terrible education and the bad accent.
There
I
is
got
that.
it. Don't
There
worry.
is that
I think
word.
it's a titty.
There is that word. And then there's also
Exclusivity.
being one of the first. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heady Topper came out. That was.
It really
That
was a groundbreaking
That was
beer.
the first New England IPA.
I guess. Yeah.
I mean,
I can't think of another unfiltered before it. And there might have been some, but I can't really think of any.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah,
was Heady
good
Topper,
point.
and I mean, I would imagine Lawson's was probably brewing something around that time, and this is probably
I feel like he came
this
a
is
lot
probably
later, but yeah.
years
six
I'm
years
sure
ago,
he was
probably.
kicking it around, yeah.
and then
Wait,
then Trillium. I mean, Trillium was doing saisons.
Saisons,
They were
yeah.
doing farmhouse ales. I mean, they were doing
Bottle conditioned beer.
wonderful single malt, like
They sure
single
were.
yeast strain, like farmhouse ales that I was driving to Boston for. coming from Plymouth area, and then they stopped. And they were just doing what Eddie Topper was doing, and it just became...
And then they got really rich.
Yeah. I mean,
and now they're opening up breweries everywhere.
It's really great. It's really great. But that wasn't what they came out as.
Correct.
It was so different.
You're starting to see a little bit of rebellion on that. And you know what, though? And I will say this, and we got to wrap it up pretty soon, but... I remember back when I got into the beer game, the Belgian was where it was at. It was before the sours. Cantillon made its way over, and Rodenbach made its way over. It was more about the bottle-conditioned Belgian high ABV sort of not Miller High Life Champagne beer. Respect. But
had one earlier.
Me too. But it was more about like these super fermented, secondary fermented, really old school yeast that's been around for centuries, just getting reused. Omegang was doing it over here. You had, and I guess we could do a whole nother show on this, and I'd love to have you guys back. But you know, you had, what's the Canadian one? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Unibrow, yeah.
Unibrow, yeah, and you know, they got them doing it up there, and like, you know, that was really where it was at. And everybody was freaking out all these different Belgian beers. Is it really just another phase? And I think, or another phase of haze. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
yeah.
And
it is, because everything in the beer business comes into it.
And that was back when a 25-ounce bottle was cool. You and I were walking down the street with our baggy pants and our sweatshirts and our Heffenreffes, and we were really cool. Now we try to do that, and everybody's like, dude, tuck that thing in. You know? And the shirt. Anyway, all right, we got to do last call because we got to wrap this thing up, and we could do this forever. But it's great because that means we have more material, and I thank you all you guys for being here today, and girls, of course, for being here today. But we do last call every show, so just a reminder to the listeners, you can find us at Bar Talk Cast on Facebook and on Twitter.
And on the interweb.
And on the interweb. The thing Karl winds up before he comes in here every day to get educated. In his rotary cell phone. But we do last call every show, and that's basically where everybody sort of gets their last second to finish their drinks and get their last thoughts out. If they want to plug their certain situation or something else, they're free to do so. So I'll kick it off. And it's sort of a cooperative last call. I got a little bet with Karl going on right now. And we had a drink at one of the newer pubs in Plymouth called the Clog Republic. Is the sort of...
Captain's Den?
The Captain's Den's the name of the bar, but Clog Republic is sort of... They got a few bars kicking around on the South Shore. And they do a great job. And Karl and I kind of hide out there every Monday, and we have a couple Mai Tais, even though we didn't get our share. Call out! I won't get into it. But anyway, we made a bet there, what was it, 1 week into the Patriots season, after they lost week one. So,
that was before.
I was pretty sure I was handicapped.
Bullshit.
Anyway, so if the Patriots win, if the Patriots go 13-3, I win the bet. If they go 12-4 or worse, Karl wins the bet. And basically, it is...
You're wearing New Balances.
The loser of the bet has to bartend at the opponent's bar. So, let's say for sake, Patriots are going to win out because they've really, really looked good the last few weeks. Last week. A couple days ago. That the Patriots win out, and they go 14-2 for the rest of the season. I win the bet, and Karl has to bartend at Speedwell and donate all of his tips to a charity of my choosing. And vice versa, which is probably what's going to happen. Come on, Brady, don't let me down again. Yeah, Brady never lets me down. What am I saying? So, yeah, but I also got to wear a Hawaiian shirt, which is, I think, the most painful thing. And bartending that if I lose. But all the proceeds are going to go to charity. It's a real fun thing. I really want to start creating some hype and plug this. We put an event page out on Facebook. It comes through Speedwell's Facebook page. We've tagged the New World Facebook page, even though Karl's not using the internet. And it's already creating a lot of hype, but we want all you guys to know about it. You've heard us on the podcast. You've listened to other episodes than this one. I think it's a real fun thing. And what would be sweeter if the Patriots won the Super Bowl and Karl lost the bet. It would be the Sunday before the Super Bowl. So
It's the off week in between.
Yeah, so if the end of the season, at the end of the playoff season, there's always that bye week in between the championship series and the Super Bowl. That Sunday before, we were thinking around 6:00. More details will come, but please join the Facebook page.
So whatever that date is, we will see you at the New World Tavern.
Exactly. It's going to come down
February
to
8th. That's all you got? You got no shit talk.
You know it's going to come down to the
confidence.
fact that the Pats could probably lose one more game, and the team with the butt fumble will play them the last game of the season and put Team Heine over the top.
Butt fumble Heine, I see. You know what?
Who cares how you win as long as you win?
If that's how I lose, I'll take it. That's the only. I like
The
that.
Jets should have
scenario.
taken them the last game.
Wait a minute. You're not going to have any personal issues. I got to be at the hospital. I got to do this. I got to do that at that time. Yeah.
It will be a month after that.
10-month gestation.
I don't want any excuses.
For those listening, I got a baby on the way, but it's not due till February 25th. So
We should put her in the kitchen. We got tile floor.
Jesus Christ, Karl, I hate you.
It's
So
not
much.
Jew, Jordan.
That's what I.
Yeah,
It's a boy. It's a boy.
Jeez.
I'm trying to be vague. No one gives a shit about
Babies
my
are
shit,
people
dude.
too,
No
man.
one cares about me. They care about IBUs.
All right, so I'm Karl Heine. Come down to the New World Tavern.
Enough, dude.
We'll see you later.
No, we gotta go to John Payton here.
Go ahead, Johnny.
All right. Well, I was hoping that this is about styles, so I was hoping that maybe we could all just say what our favorite style is currently.
I like that.
It does change, with the time, with
Heady
the times
topper.
and the seasons. But
Good style.
But in terms of me and Lord Hobo, please check out my Instagram LHBCodeJohn, and then check out our new online store at LordHoboBrewing.com. You can get all the fresh gear.
Beer.
Massachusetts
sucks. You can't buy beer yet, though.
Yeah, I know, right?
You get some
right?
dope hats, though.
We do have
Email
we
your
have some dope
senator,
hats.
your governor. Sorry, John.
We have
go
some
ahead.
dope hats. We got some dope stickers,
I'm
shirts,
working on one. It's sweet.
all that stuff. And then I'll start it off. My favorite style the past 6 months, 10 months right now, has been land beer from out of Germany, or Zwickel beer. Both very similar in style, but very easy to drink German style beers that no one ever drinks, and they should.
Total hipster thing to say. He won't have them. They're delicious.
He won't be at our next podcast. I'll tell you.
Yeah, he will. He is here. Go ahead, Kenny.
All right.
Last
so,
call.
Thank you. Yeah, Kenny Semcken. So here representing Second Wind Brewing Company, we are looking to open, as I said, barring all the red tape of certificates of occupancy and fire and safety checks, we want to be selling beer to this town by Thanksgiving.
Woo!
Yeah, that's the goal.
I got excited.
One way or another. I mean, this is a brewery we've built ourselves from the ground up, literally, and really a labor of love that we cannot wait to bring. And the calls we get, 5-6 calls a day. Are you open yet? Are you open yet? We cannot
Carl, I told
wait
you to
to
stop
bring.
calling.
We cannot
Walk
wait to
over
bring.
across the street.
walk. It's a long
We
walk.
can't wait to bring the beer to the masses. So we're on Instagram, Facebook, Second Wind Brewing, Twitter, Second Wind Beer. We don't want to waste any more characters than we had to.
That's right to the point, man. That's I wish I could do that.
I'm gonna go with the style I've probably been drinking the most. Has been Pilsner lately, and I really, for two reasons. One is
Respect.
with like my house mortgage to pay for this brewery and for all the other personal debt, like I've found myself back into really some easy drinking, low cost. I would love to be buying $24 4-packs, but we're working long nights and I want something easy to drink while we're there and something that I can afford, and I'm just going through the Pilsners. And the other reason is because we want to make one, and we want to make a really good craft Pilsner and have a year-round Pilsner and bring that to Plymouth. So that's it's a bit of research as well.
Is that the Pilgrim?
It's awesome.
one? The Pilgrim one?
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, never mind. Just kidding.
Angela, you're up. It's last call.
Hey, I am Angela Ralsted of Craft Beer Cellar Plymouth / Bay State Brew Tours, and I sell beers and bus tickets.
Fried chicken, roast beers.
And your favorite
What's your
style?
style of beer?
Oh yeah, New England IPA, hands down, all day, every day.
Word up.
Yeah.
I'll just, I've already heard my spiel, and I was wicked long-winded.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
Thanks, Karl. But I guess my favorite style, actually, I not just blowing smoke, but I've been crushing Glorious as like a motherfucker, man. Glorious has been my favorite beer this year.
It's its own style.
Between it is its own style because obviously you toe the line, but you don't know what that line is. So I couldn't tell you what the style is. But Glorious and at Castle Island High Def. High Def is definitely an IPA.
Yes.
But obviously, if you look at Karl's fridge, because he doesn't charge me for beers, Glorious has been my favorite beer this year. So
Nice.
salute to you,
All right.
Karl. What's your favorite
Oh.
beer style?
You know, I'm going to have to go with Kenny on this and say
Carlsberg.
Pilsners lately. But I'm slowly starting to get into the stouts for the colder season.
Yeah, for sure.
Word up.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. This has been an awesome podcast. Really good personalities. Thank you all for joining us. I personally want to thank Andy and Fish for having us and producing this podcast and keeping it going and not losing hope on the Bar Talk podcast. Man, they keep just inviting us to do this stuff. So, but thank you very much again. It's at Bar Talk Cast on Twitter and on Facebook. Also, check out Inebriart on Facebook. And Twitter and Instagram. Some great artists up there, and the guys who always got events going on over at New World Tavern with paint nights and live drawing and stuff like that. Again, thank you again for listening. It's Jordan and Karl again with Bar Talk Cast.